Imagine walking into your child's school to pick her up, only to see her own teacher standing over, kicking and beating her like an animal, all for no reason, only because she was black. That's exactly what happens to Layla Bennett, a 15-year-old black girl who was simply on her way out from school, unaware that the man meant to protect students was about to turn on her out of pure hatred. But what that racist teacher doesn't realize is that his actions are about to destroy everything he's built. Because when Layla's father arrives, he doesn't just stop him, he delivers justice. The morning sun spilled through the windows of Clearwater High, painting the brick walls in a soft, deceptive glow. To anyone driving by, it looked like a place of opportunity, flags waving, banners reading respect, excellence, integrity. Parents trusted it. Students dreamed within it. But inside those halls, beneath the hum of fluorescent lights and polished slogans, a quieter truth waited. Layla Bennett, a 15-year-old black girl with neat braids and bright, observant eyes, walked through the front doors with her backpack slung over one shoulder. She looked like any other student, calm, composed, focused. But those who knew her well saw more. She carried herself with the quiet discipline her father, Raymond Bennett, had instilled in her. An ex-Special Forces operative, Raymond had taught her control, awareness, and dignity, tools she carried into every challenge life threw her way. At first, Layla believed Clearwater would be a safe space, somewhere her hard work could speak louder than her skin color. But that illusion cracked the day she met Mr. Harlan Pierce, a white teacher with an easy smile that never reached his eyes. His reputation around school was mixed. Some saw him as strict, others as intimidating. But for students who weren't white, his rules always seemed sharper. It started subtly. Bag checks, he called them, demanding Layla unzip her backpack without warning. His voice was always calm, but his tone carried something colder. You people need to learn accountability, he'd say, eyes flicking to her skin before her face. The first few times she complied, silent, polite. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. Pick your battles, baby girl. Strength doesn't always need to shout, but over the weeks, the encounters multiplied. He stopped her between classes, questioned where she'd been, hinted she didn't fit the image Clearwater liked to present. His comments carried a venom wrapped in professionalism, racism disguised as authority. Layla began to dread the sound of his shoes in the hallway. She noticed how teachers nearby pretended not to see, how students turned away. The silence hurt worse than his words. Each day, the weight grew heavier, pressing down on her resolve. Still, she kept walking tall, because Raymond Bennett's daughter didn't break easy. But deep down, she felt it, the shadow following her through every corridor. And she knew, one day soon, that shadow would step closer. The next few weeks at Clearwater High felt like walking through a minefield. Every corner held tension. The racist teacher, Mr. Pierce, had turned his quiet obsession into a daily ritual. He lingered by Layla Bennett's locker, watched her during lunch, and always seemed to appear when no one else was around. At first, she tried to ignore it, smile, walk on, keep her head high, but the looks he gave her weren't about discipline. They were about power. You think the rules don't apply to you, huh? He'd mutter one morning as she passed. People like you always think they're special. The words landed like a slap, but Layla didn't react. Have you ever seen a racist school teacher before? What would you do if a teacher treated you differently? Not out of discipline, but out of pure racism. Before we go further, what city or country are you watching from right now? Drop it in the comments. We love seeing where our viewers are tuning in from. And if you believe racism has no place in any classroom, smash that like button and subscribe to Story Arc, because silence only protects the guilty. She'd been raised better than to let ignorance win. Still, every remark chipped away at her patience. Students noticed the tension, but most avoided eye contact. After soccer practice one evening, Layla was one of the last students in the hall, her duffel bag slung over her shoulder, cleats still muddy. She turned a corner and froze. Pierce stood there, blocking her path, leaning casually against the lockers. You're here late, he said, voice calm but eyes sharp. Practice ran long, she replied quietly. Show me your bag. It's just clothes, she answered. Open it, he ordered. Layla hesitated, then slowly unzipped the bag. The teacher dug through her things like she was a suspect, his fingers brushing her jersey, her notebooks, her cleats. Finding nothing, he smirked. Careful with that tone, he said when she finally whispered, "Are you done?" For a moment, their eyes locked. She stood tall, unmoving, defiant. His stare faltered. Then he stepped aside with a sneer, letting her pass. The next morning, Thursday, came gray and heavy, rain smearing the windows of Clearwater High. The halls were quieter than usual, students dragging their feet between classes, heads buried in phones. Layla Bennett had just left math, notebook tucked under her arm, when she realized her hallway was empty, too empty. At the far end, Mr. Pierce stood waiting, arms crossed, smile gone. Eyes full of that same hateful glare she'd learned to dread. "Where were you just now?" he asked, stepping forward. "In class," she said, steady but cautious. He nodded slowly, pretending to think. "Interesting. Someone reported a phone missing. Guess where it was last seen?" Her chest tightened. "I don't know anything about that." "Of course you don't," he sneered. "Empty your bag." Her hands trembled, but she opened it. Books, papers, pencils. Pierce dumped them out carelessly, letting her homework scatter across the floor. He found nothing, but leaned in anyway, so close she could smell his coffee-stained breath. "You think you're too good to get caught, don't you? You people always play the victim." Her eyes widened. There it was, the real reason, the ugliness he'd been hiding behind his authority. "Step back," she said, voice shaking. "You don't tell me what to do," he barked, slamming her shoulder into the lockers. The crash echoed down the hall. Layla gasped in pain, clutching her arm. He pressed her again, shouting words she couldn't even process, ungrateful, disrespectful, troublemaker. Two freshmen appeared at the far end, freezing in shock. One lifted a phone, recording. Pierce noticed, but didn't stop. Rage had blinded him. He yanked Layla away from the lockers and kicked her in the ribs. Once. Twice. The sound was sickening. Her body folded under the impact. When she tried to crawl away, his boot connected with her side again, sending her head crashing into another locker with a hollow metallic bang. Blood trickled from her nose. Her notebook lay open beside her, pages smeared red. She could barely breathe. A teacher peeked out from a nearby door, saw the scene, and stepped back inside, shutting it. Layla lay trembling, every breath shallow, the world spinning around her. Pierce crouched down, his voice low, venomous. "This is what happens when you people don't know your place." The footsteps grew louder, measured, heavy, deliberate. Every student still frozen in the hall turned toward the sound, and then he appeared. Raymond Bennett, tall, broad-shouldered, his dark coat soaked from the rain. The air shifted the moment he stepped in. His eyes locked on the sight ahead, his daughter crumpled on the floor, blood streaking her cheek, the teacher standing above her like a man who thought he owned the world. For a heartbeat, time froze. There was no warning, no words. He moved before the racist teacher could even turn fully around. Mr. Pierce barely managed to say, "Sir, this doesn't," before Raymond was on him. A sharp crack split the air as Raymond's forearm smashed into Pierce's chest, sending him staggering back into the lockers. The man gasped, clutching for breath, but Raymond didn't stop. "You hit my daughter!" Raymond's voice thundered, each word a weapon. "You kicked my daughter!" Pierce swung wildly, desperate, but Raymond blocked effortlessly, his movements precise, lethal, born from years in the Special Forces. A swift strike to the wrist sent the baton spinning to the floor. Another hit to the ribs folded the teacher over with a guttural grunt. The students watching couldn't believe it. Phones up, eyes wide, the myth of safety collapsing right in front of them. Pierce lunged again, rage mixing with fear. Raymond sidestepped, grabbed his collar, and slammed him chest first into the lockers with a metallic clang that shook the hall. He pinned him there with one arm, his voice low and deadly. "You call yourself an educator? You're nothing but a coward hiding behind your skin color." Pierce sputtered, face red, the fight gone. Raymond released him, not gently. The man crumpled to the floor, groaning, broken in pride more than pain. Raymond turned to his daughter. Layla's breath came shallow, her eyes glassy but alive. He knelt, lifting her carefully. "You're safe now, baby," he said, voice trembling but sure. "He'll never touch you again." The hallway erupted in whispers. Phones were still recording. Within hours, the footage flooded the internet. The headlines spread like wildfire. Racist teacher attacks black student, taken down by her father, an ex-Special Forces veteran. By the next morning, every news station in the city was outside Clearwater High. Parents were furious. Students refused to enter classrooms until the teacher was removed. Protest signs lined the gates. Justice for Layla, end racism in schools, protect our kids. Mr. Pierce's life fell apart. ASAP. He was immediately fired from Clearwater. The school board, once trying to defend him, threw him under the bus when the investigation uncovered a long history of racist complaints he'd hidden behind false reports. Old students came forward. Emails surfaced showing his racial bias. The police launched a full inquiry. His teaching license was revoked, and the district attorney pressed assault and hate crime charges. When the footage aired nationwide, his reputation shattered completely. Sponsors that had funded his classroom projects pulled out. His wife left. Even former colleagues distanced themselves. The man who once strutted the halls with false power was now a national disgrace. Meanwhile, Layla recovered, slowly but with strength. She stood beside her father during the press conference outside the courthouse, her ribs still sore but her voice steady. "I don't want pity," she said. "I want accountability. I want schools to protect every child, not just the ones they're comfortable with." If you believe every student deserves safety, dignity, and equality, smash that like button and subscribe to Story Arc for stories that remind the world silence protects the guilty, but courage protects the future.